Okay, boys and girls, let's take a look at question number 2 from today's Desmos work. Rami measured a plant and it was 23 and 7/10 centimeters tall. He measured the same plant a week later and it was 29 centimeters tall. How much did the plant grow in 1 week? All right, so I've read and got some information about Rami and his plant. Now I need to reread and I want to find some important information. If I could mark up on this board here, I can't, but if I could, I would jail my details. So as I read through the second time, I'm going to point out some information that would be important and that you could have circled or underlined or highlighted just so you understood what the problem was talking about. All right, so Rami measured a plant and it was 23 and 7/10 centimeters tall. This is important to know. I would jail this detail, 23 and 7/10 centimeters tall. He measured the same plant, oh, there's a missing T there, a week later, and it was 29 centimeters tall. Okay? This is important to know. The same plant now was 29 centimeters tall. How much did the plant grow in 1 week? Okay, so this is also important. It wants us to find out how much the plant grew. So if it started out at 23 and 7/10 centimeters tall, and it ended up at 29 centimeters tall, I have to find the difference between the two. And the word difference should tell you that we're going to subtract to solve this problem. So let's set up an expression over here. 29, that's what it ended up the week later. We're going to take away the 23 and 7/10 centimeters from the 29 centimeters, and that will answer our question of how much the plant grew in 1 week. Okay, so let's use what we know about adding and subtracting mixed numbers to solve this problem. So it looks like I've got a whole number part right here. I've got this whole number 29, and I've got this whole number part right here, 23. But take a look. I have 7/10. It's not just 23, it's 23 and 7/10. So I need to subtract my whole numbers and I need to subtract my fraction parts. Now, 29 centimeters does not have a fraction part. So I'm going to adjust or regroup my 29 so that it is equivalent to 29, but it has a fraction part. So I'm going to make this 28, and then my fraction part is going to be that fancy form of 1, right? Because I took 1 away from 29, and I'm going to make it into that fancy form of 1. And I'm going to look ahead at my fraction up here and see that it has 10 as a denominator. And I know that whenever I go to do my work with my fractions, my denominators need to be the same. So I'm going to make my 28 and my fancy form of 1 for 29, 10 over 10. Okay? So now my 29 has that fraction part that I can subtract. All right, let me move on and let me now take a look at my fraction parts. I'm going to subtract my fraction parts. So I've got my 10 over 10, and I'm going to subtract my 7/10. We know that when we subtract fractions, we have to have the like denominators, and we do here. We made sure of that up top when we were doing some regrouping. So we're going to keep our fraction or our denominator of 10. And let me look at my numerators. 10 minus 7 gives me 3. So I've got 3/10, and that's a nice fraction. It's not improper. It actually doesn't need simplified. 3/10 is wonderful. So I'm going to keep my 3/10, but I'm not done. I've got to go back up here now, and I've got to take a look at those whole numbers. Remember, I had the 28 and the 23. I need to subtract those two numbers And I'm using 28, remember, because I regrouped from 29 and made it 28 and 10 over 10, and I already used my fraction part down here. All right, so 28 minus 23 gives me 5. So my whole number is going to be 5. My fraction part's going to be 3/10. And I can go back and say that in 1 week, Ramia's plant grew 5 3/10 centimeters. If your whiteboard does not look like my whiteboard, take this time to fix it. Did you see where you made a mistake? And if you didn't make a mistake, great.